Hi everybody, I'm here today to talk about the Bitcoin supercycle, how we might break convention and Bitcoin goes, instead of a normal cycle going 10x or 20x, we see the whole world recognize Bitcoin's value and we see Bitcoin break convention and move up much, much higher than it has before. All right, so I wrote this up in my newsletter. And so I wrote this because I feel like a lot of people are looking at the market and they're going, oh, well, Bitcoin will just have a typical cycle. I think there's a ton of different reasons why that won't be the case. What's really interesting too, I think that most people don't know, is that Satoshi actually hypothesized that speculation would lead to Bitcoin's inception and adoption. For example, Satoshi says, as the number of users grows, the value per coin increases. It has a potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, the value goes up, which could attract more users to take advantage of the increasing value. He wrote this before Bitcoin was worth even a penny. And when we take that, his equation of essentially, he knows that FOMO with that fixed supply in those halving cycles, so every 4 years the number of newly issued Bitcoin drops in half, which reduces supply, fresh supply hitting the market, and what he just described as the demand side. When that occurs, we see the price going up. And we can see this over time. The dotted lines are the halving events, and we see these speculative bubbles occur. And these we hypothesize are due to a reduction in demand, a reduction in supply and an increase in demand. And this has occurred throughout Bitcoin's existence. This goes back to 2011, and you can see halving, boom cycle, halving, boom, halving, and we are entering one. I wrote this last week, and it's already up, another 5,000 from here. So what is this? Well, in traditional marketing sense, this is called a viral feedback loop. And what is that? So the way that a viral feedback loop is, someone discovers a piece of content. So let's say you see a funny dog video that's associated with a website. Then you go to the website to try it out. You find value there, and then you share it with your friends. And so in tech, which I've been working in tech for 8 years, and I used to work on rider growth at Uber. That team was comprised of a couple different PMs, and one of them included virality. So I've seen exactly how big companies think about this. How do we create content? How do we create features in the app that people will share and bring more people in, a viral loop? This came from the term, viral, a viral coefficient, or essentially how fast does a virus spread through a population. Same thing with products. And Satoshi understood this, and he brought this into money. He understood that he could create a viral feedback loop of just the price alone. As the price increases, people become more aware of it. And then other people buy in expectation of the price going higher. And then they tell their friends about it. As you've probably noticed over Christmas, if you're already into crypto and Bitcoin, that folks at home probably asked you if you're still into that, because they've heard about it in the news and they're starting to, you are exposing them in terms of the sharing process to this new asset, which is really, really wild. And so what's really unique about this cycle, though, other than all the other cycles, and I've been around for 8 years, I've been through the early 13, late 13, and 2017 bust and bull runs. This one is very different. Never before has Bitcoin had such strong fundamentals against a macro backdrop, and which highlights exactly why it's needed. And the narrative is singular. The ability for people to buy Bitcoin has never been easier. Okay, let's start with macro backdrop. A lot of folks don't remember that Bitcoin was planted in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis. It was born, Satoshi planted Bitcoin to solve this problem of trust with governments and money and banks. But from 2008 to 2020, there really wasn't any financial crisis. There was no recession. There might have been little pockets here and there across the world, but not the whole world. Until COVID came. And when COVID came, the markets were totally roiled. People were panicking. I'm sure the folks here remember, who were watching this remember, like trying to find groceries and toilet paper. And so this was Bitcoin's first real test. Well, there is no backstop to Bitcoin. The base value of Bitcoin is the aggregate shared belief of all the hodlers to go buy it. Will it go to zero when the world is on fire? And it didn't. Even though it had a nail-biting plunge, it survived, and this was incredible. Now, so when we look at how Bitcoin survived, Bitcoin not only survived, and by the way, March 12th was a liquidity crisis, but gold, the quintessential store value for 4,000 years, also dipped. So it's not fair when people look at Bitcoin and go, oh, look, it dipped March 12th. Well, so did gold. It was a liquidity crunch where folks were trying to sell off different, or traders were trying to sell off different assets to meet margin calls as the system delevered. Bitcoin not only survived it, but it soared, and now it's at around $26,000 to $28,000, depends on the day. And when Bitcoin started to recover, governments across the world engaged in unprecedented money printing, or in other words, stimulus. In all recorded financial history, we have never seen anything like this before. There's a really cool report called A Journey into the Unknown Long-Term Asset Management Study by Jim Reed from Deutsche Bank, where he goes back and looks at 800 years of recorded financial history. Never before have we seen debt to GDP ratios like this. Never before have we seen inflation this high. It is truly unprecedented. And, you know, this is what's so interesting, is that folks don't think that they need Bitcoin until this moment happens when it shakes them out of the reality and they go, oh, I get why Bitcoin's valuable. Just like getting an earthquake insurance. Most people don't think about getting an earthquake insurance until an earthquake hits. And then people are calling up the insurance company wanting to get earthquake insurance. And Bitcoin is exactly like that. It's insurance against money and devaluing of money by governments and the lack of trust with banks. It was special purpose built to where you don't have to trust the government or bank. And these moments don't come around very often. So COVID brought Bitcoin's focus in value and made it really obvious for the world. And because of that, a new participant entered, the institutions. So if the people watching this, if you've seen, you know, if you were around since late 17, you probably heard the institutional herd is coming. It wasn't wrong, it was just early. Institutions post-COVID were searching for a safe store of value. You've got $18 trillion of negatively yielding sovereign debt. And you know, Bitcoin offers such a greater value than gold as a store of value, and much higher potential upside. These institutions manage over $100 trillion. And what's nuts is that over the last 4 months, these are the institutions that have recognized Bitcoin as Gold 2.0, like Fidelity, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Citibank, BlackRock. These are huge. These are the most legendary firms in the world. You've got Guggenheim that says Bitcoin should be around $400,000. The CIO of Guggenheim, an older guy coming up there, which is wild because guys like me, you know, who recognized Bitcoin as Gold 2.0 8 years ago, you know, we didn't think this was, we thought this might happen, but a decade from now. In Mass Mutual, a 150-year-old insurance company. I mean, these insurance companies don't speculate. They have a huge portfolio and they're looking to reduce their risk and maximize the return. And they evaluated Bitcoin very objectively. To give some indication of how much money has been printed, here's the percent change from the prior year of the money supply in the US. Huge. And these are recessions. So here's the recessions, here's previous recessions. This is how massive this changes. This goes back to like the 1970s. And then here's all recorded data from the Fed, which I think is on the same chart here. It's just this one shows the percentage change and this shows the total value. You can see how massive this is. From $15 trillion as M2 money supply to over $19 trillion. So the US alone printing almost $5 trillion, and that's just in the M2 stock. That doesn't include a bunch of other things that they're going to be doing. So pretty wild. Now, and again, for the people who've been here since 2017, you've probably heard of many other competing narratives like ICOs and Ethereum being a DApp platform. Bitcoin's narrative of Gold 2.0 is fighting both that and Bitcoin Cash. And Bitcoin Cash was the cheap PayPal narrative for Bitcoin. There's sort of a civil war with the Bitcoin Cash community being the Confederates. In both the DApp platform and cheap PayPal narrative failed to find traction and faded away, but they were a significant headwind that Bitcoin faced in 2017. There were so many other competing narratives. Right now, Gold 2.0 is the only narrative. It is the singular focus for the space, which is pretty huge for Bitcoin because you have all of the narratives and all the aggregate narrative building of institutions and retail behind Gold 2.0. And Bitcoin didn't have that at all in 2017 and still hit 20,000. And then finally, you know, Bitcoin's ease of use is phenomenally easier to use than 2013 and 2017. I used to have to wire money from Dwolla to Mt. Gox, and that took like a week. And then I had to go enter an order book, like an order in the order book. Coinbase was a huge success here, making it easy where they abstracted that away and you just said, I want to buy or sell crypto. But now we've got huge companies like PayPal PayPal has 346 million customers, and that's huge. And then you've got like Cash App and SoFi. And those are two big companies as well, and they offer buying Bitcoin in Robinhood. You know, what's going to happen in 2021, 2022 when everywhere you can buy Bitcoin, every bank, every brokerage, all that pent-up purchasing and demand for Bitcoin flows into the market. So we've got the institutions and retail who are going to flow trillions of dollars into Bitcoin over the next couple of years. And that's why I think this is a super cycle. What happens when ownership of Bitcoin moves from 0.01% of the world to 1%, 100x increase? Price will move much more than that. What happens when $100 trillion from institutions comes in to preserve wealth? It certainly is not going to be a typical cycle. It's not going to, I don't think we're going to see a huge 80% drop down after the peak of the bull run. Like, the whole world is waking up to why Bitcoin's valuable. The earthquake has happened, and now they're buying earthquake insurance, which is Bitcoin. So I think this might be like one of the final big cycles, and that's why I call it the Bitcoin super cycle.